Today's guest is Sarah Faith, a singer-songwriter out of Nashville. Sarah Faith is currently prepping for the release of her new album next month. Welcome, Sarah Faith.
Hi.
Hey,
How's it going?
it's going really, really well. How are you?
Doing great. So you're in Nashville right now, right?
Yeah, I'm well, a little we situated ourselves just far enough away from the city to where it didn't drive us crazy, but yes.
Awesome. Have you always lived in Nashville?
No, we are from Michigan and we moved to Nashville in August of 2019.
Wow.
So about a year and a half ago.
What made you want to make the move to Nashville?
I was in a band for this journey is so crazy. So in Michigan, I had my own photography and videography company. I was shooting weddings and high school seniors and getting pooped on by babies and like all this stupid stuff. And it was great. Like I'm not complaining at all. I started it. It was my baby. And then I joined a band, a country, like classic rock cover band. And I was a backup singer and rhythm guitarist. And I was having a lot of fun with that. And then I started writing my own stuff because my previous story was like kind of creeping into my musician journey. And I was just like, well, what would it be like to write a song? I started writing songs and was like, okay, well, that was very freeing. And then I just really felt like there were people asking me when I was moving to Nashville that like, I didn't even know, first of all. I had no like real connection with these people. And they were like, oh, when are you going to move to Nashville? And I was like, I've never talked to you before, nor told you that I ever planned to do that. But now that you mention it, it just felt like, honestly, as woo as it sounds, like, just bear with me. Like, it just felt like the universe was just like pushing us. And my husband and I are just trigger pullers. Like when it comes to like cool things and opportunities presenting themselves, we're like, okay, well, if I'm 80 years old and look back and think, what if, like, I definitely don't want to do that. So we just went for it.
That's awesome. So yeah, take us back to the beginning. Were you born and raised in Michigan?
Yeah. Born and raised in Michigan. I was born in Rochester, Michigan. My parents divorced when I was really young. And then my mom had custody of me, but she was an alcoholic and that got really crazy. So my dad got custody of me when I was 12. And then I was basically from then on, I was just raised as my father's daughter, like, and everything that comes with that. Like, I'm not a daddy's girl. I'm not spoiled. That wasn't how it went. I was working on cars. I was listening to a crap ton of classic music. Like, I was getting like the full like dude experience, which is like super responsible for everything that I am right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. What kind of music specifically did you listen to?
Oh gosh, my dad actually, funny story. When I was getting my first car, he goes, Sarah, there's something special about the radio in this car. And I was like, oh yeah, what is it? Well, if you play country music in it, the speakers will break. I was like, oh, okay, good one. So we didn't listen to a lot of country music at all when I was growing up. My dad was not a huge fan. My mom was, my dad wasn't. So like I dabble in country, but it's not my main squeeze. I was raised on like classic rock, 90s alternative. As a 14-year-old, I asked for the Rush album for Christmas. I've seen Styx, Foreigner, AC/DC, Queen live. Like that's my stuff. Like all that like classic stuff when guitar was king, and like the real good stuff that everything now kind of spawns from. That's where kind of I started.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
When did you decide to pick up an instrument, start playing, or start writing?
Oh, my poor dad. I had a friend in middle school whose dad was a musician, and she had a music room in her house. And, I had been singing ever since I could talk. It was just like, it just kept coming out of me. It probably wasn't really any good, but I just liked to do it. And so then I spent some time in my friend's music room, and I was like, Dad, I really think I want a guitar. He was like, what? Like, what do you want to do with it? You make enough noise in this house. We do not need you running around with one of those. But he bought me my first guitar for Christmas when I was like probably 15, 14, something like that. And I learned a little bit. I was just like self-taught. And then, life kind of comes in, and I made time for other things. I was a collegiate athlete. I was just all over the place. But I just, picked it back up like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And I've been kind of just really going hard on it ever since. So guitar is my main instrument. I also am self-taught a little bit on piano. But yeah, I don't know. I can't get enough. I mean, I spend so much time with this guitar behind me. It's like not even funny. People wonder like, do you get out of the house? I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I don't.
That's awesome though. So you picked up a guitar and then you ended up in a country rock cover band. Is that correct? How'd that come to go?
So the old neighborhood that we were in, there was some ladies in the neighborhood that I got to be friends with, and we were having a ladies' night out. And this night we decided that the husbands were welcome, God bless them. And we went to this little tiny hole in the wall place in Michigan, and it was called Mary Donnelly's. It's like the smallest bar you've ever seen in your life. And they had karaoke, and I decided I was going to sing karaoke. And then there was this lady talking to my husband in the back, which isn't like rare. Like everyone thinks they either know Ryan, whether it's legitimate or not. They're like, oh yeah, your name's Todd. He's like, no, my name's Ryan. Like everyone thinks they recognize him. So I just thought that it was just someone else that recognized him from somewhere. But it was this lady asking me if I would ever consider auditioning for a band. And I was like, okay, what? And she was like, yeah, no, I have a friend who's looking for a backup singer, and I think that you'd fit in. Like, you're great. And I was like, this is an amazing compliment, but you're probably full of shit. And so I got her phone number. She connected me with the leader of that band, and I auditioned. I got the job, and I was with that band for probably about a year while I was figuring out that was the universe's way of telling me, like, you're going to be a live performer, whether you thought it was real or not. And that was it.
Wow. So before you just listened to classic rock, was that the first time you were into country, or did you kind of have a little phase in before that?
I think I had a little bit of phase in before that. Like I mentioned, my mom was a country music fan. So we would listen to that in the car, like 90s country, like not modern country. Modern country drives me a little bit crazy. And I might lose a few friends or followers for saying that, but I don't care because I'm just being myself. Just being myself. Yeah, no, like 90s country. I was like actually a really big Billy Ray Cyrus fan, which was very strange. Like back when he had a mullet and shit before he was doing like that like hip hop mix thing or whatever. Yeah, I was a big Billy Ray Cyrus fan. I listened to a lot of like Diamond Rio and like, that kind of like old school stuff, which isn't old school country. It's not like Merle Haggard or Conway Twitty, but like it's where I was in the journey. But then I just kind of lost my way with country when I started listening to rock with my dad.
Gotcha. So what did you learn while you were in this cover band? Like, how do you think it affected you as an artist?
Well, I learned how to play guitar on stage standing up, which was number one. Like, I didn't know how the hell to play standing up. Like, I still struggle with it. It's still like a work in progress. I learned like, for as flamboyant, as crazy as I can be, like when I'm singing in my room, like with whatever, when the door's shut and nobody's watching, like you're still allowed to do that on stage. Like, it's okay. You can be crazy. Everyone can see you, but it's not a big deal. I learned actually some of the most valuable knowledge that I took away from it was like, as nerdy as I am, we were talking earlier about how I took my guitar apart and put it back together. I learned a lot of like nitty gritty stuff about like backlines and like hookups and like stage plots and like, this is how a drum set is put together. Like I was helping the drummer put the thing together and take it apart like every show. And that was actually like really valuable for me. Even if I was being asked to do that to like expedite the process, like I didn't care. I was like, shit, yeah, I love putting shit together. Like, let's do this. Like I was really into like the mechanics of it all, so that was super valuable for me with being with that band.
That's awesome. That's really interesting. It's kind of interesting how it came back from your childhood, growing up with your dad, sounds like, and then kind of found its way into your music career as well.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you touched on how you eventually moved to Nashville. Was there a single moment you can remember where it's like you decided you wanted to be a musician, like it just clicked for you?
Well, there's been a few, and some of them happened before I got here. Some of them happened while I was in that band. Some of them were when I was 7 years old, and I was like, I want to be a singer when I grow up. I want to be a musician. Well, I don't know what that means. And then, life happens and you get thrown off the course and you go into survival mode and you have to do X number of things before you actually make it back around to doing the thing you always wanted to do. Like this is what I wanted to do when I was 7 years old. And my life didn't really allow that to happen until recently, which I'm so thankful for. But there was a moment where I was playing one of my songs, which will be released in May on this album. I was playing it acoustically for a women's like workshop in Arkansas. And, my mom passed away 4 years ago from alcoholism. And this lady come up to me, she's now one of my dear friends, and she said, "Thank you so much for playing that song. I now understand what my addiction looks like through my daughter's eyes. I'm 8 days sober. Can you please send me that song because it's going to keep me sober?" And I was like,
Wow.
I get it. Like, for everything that I went through, like, it all made sense in that moment. Having endured a crazy childhood with my mom and all that BS, like, it's all worth it if it helps one person. Like, even if today someone came up to me and was like, "You can't do this," I'd be like, you know what? I've already impacted like quite a few lives with this. And that's where it's at for me is, I had a person come up to me the other day and say, for me, it wasn't my mom, it was my dad. My dad was on heroin. And I'm like, fuck, dude, like, okay, it just smacks you in the face in those moments when you write a song that's like from the depths of your soul. Cause you just literally, I live by this. You never know who needs to hear what you have to say. And that's kind of my mantra going through all of this. Like, I just never know who needs to hear it. It's just my job to show up and write it,
Is it hard for you to write those songs that are so vulnerable and so close to you?
I don't want to say no because I don't want to sound like a hard ass. However, I will say that I have been writing my feelings, whether it was a journal, wherever the fuck, like since I was 7. Like when I was going through counseling with my mom, the answer was, okay, you need to draw pictures to get your emotions out and you need to write your feelings down. If you don't feel like you can get them out, you don't feel like you can say it to anybody, then you need to write it down. So that was like the earliest time when I learned that like, that's what writing is for. Like, screw writing in school when you're like learning your letters. Like, that's not what writing is for. Feelings is what my like understanding was. So it is hard. However, I've just done it for a really long time and it gets easier. I mean, sometimes the hardest part for me is actually figuring out how to say what I want to say, because sometimes there's so much emotion there that it feels like words don't really do it justice. But when I finally find them, it's like such a win and you get to just kind of unload it. It's so freeing.
Yeah, it sounds like a huge gift almost that you were given as such a young kid to be able to develop that over your life. I mean, because some people, they get in the music thing and then they try and it's so hard. I mean, and it takes years for them to be able to do it. So the fact you've been doing your whole life, that helps a ton.
I really appreciate you saying that. And, I think when I was 7, I probably didn't look at it like that. I looked at it like, this is bullshit. Why do I have to do this? Like, why can't I be a normal kid? Like I was really kind of struggling with that normalcy thing. But in hindsight, I really do believe that all the things in our life work together. And I don't think we're designed, or I don't think the plan is for us to be unhappy. I'm actually pretty convinced that it's not. We just have to figure out how to make sense of the things that we're going through. And we just have to figure out how it adds up. Like, what is the point of me going through this amazing storm at the age of 7, 8, 9, 12, whatever? It's so that when you get older and you keep writing, you can help people that are doing the same things as you. Because my story is unique to me, but there are people that go through trauma all the damn time. So it's just a matter of giving it back,
Yeah. And it's interesting because, some people go through that storm, you called it, in their 20s,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of interesting. I think people in their 40s and 60s can look back sometimes and say, there's a reason I had such a hard, 20-year run right there. Just because I needed it now. And so it's interesting to hear that.
Yeah. And, I'm not insensitive to anybody that's going through anything. Like, if there's even anybody listening to this that's going through anything, like, my heart breaks for them, but that's what keeps me going. Like, I know that heartache and like struggle is so prevalent that it's almost like I don't want to be like, oh, you'll get over it. Like, I hope I never come off as you'll get over it. I really would much rather be the person that like, you can like kind of get acquainted with me and figure out what I'm about, and then know that this is me like coming alongside of you and like writing something that might hit you in your soul that will make you last another day, you know?
Yeah, of course. That's amazing. So when you decided to be a musician and you had a lot of people telling you to move to Nashville, was it hard to actually pull the trigger and make that move and leave everything behind for it?
Um, well, I also don't want to sound insensitive in this answer, but my husband and I are just like, we just jump with like 2 feet. We don't have a plan B. The house that I'm sitting in right now, we actually bought on FaceTime, and that's not a joke. Like, I'm totally serious.
Wow.
We're on FaceTime with the realtor as she was walking around, like knocking on walls, knocking on countertops. This is granite. This is a wooden door. These aren't fake. Like, this is, and we were like, okay, put in a full price offer. She was like, what? We're like, just do the damn thing. Everybody's buying the houses. Every house that we see is getting bought up. So just put the offer in. Our house in Michigan, we owned it. We weren't renting. And we decided to have a realtor come over just to check it out, just to see what she thought we might be able to do. Well, she had that house sold for a cash offer within a week before it was on the market. We were like, shit, we're homeless. What are we gonna do now? So yeah, we had to buy a house. We bought a house, and we put we sold it in July. We were here August 2nd, like, done.
Yeah, that's
We
amazing.
kind of really didn't have time to like be scared or think it through, because we were just here. Like, my husband had not seen our house until he had already signed on it. I came here first to meet the movers, and we were putting boxes into it already when he pulled in. I was like, hey, babe.
Wow. It's crazy.
This is our house. I hope you love it.
What was it like getting settled into Nashville? Because I know a lot of musicians, they go there and they have struggles, fitting in and, being such a small fish in a big pond, so to speak. What was that like for you? Was it easy for you, just like moving over there, or how was it getting settled?
Well, first of all, the second philosophy I live by is if you're the smartest person in the room, you need a different room. So I didn't really have any intentions of staying in Michigan and being a big fish in a small pond. I would much rather be a small fish in a big pond, because I think there's so much more you can learn from that. And I think a lot of people are scared of that. But for me, I really enjoy that feeling. And it's intimidating. It's scary AF sometimes. Sometimes I cry about it. Sometimes I get really pissed off and I'm like, why the fuck can't I do it? I just want to do what I want to do. But it just all takes time, and you just have to like navigate through it, meet the right people, talk to everybody. Don't be an asshole. Don't burn your bridges. And I think that what's supposed to happen will happen. But that to say, when we first moved here, this is a very vulnerable story, so I hope that that's okay.
Yeah.
So we moved here. We had just gotten married almost a year prior to that. And then we moved our entire life. My mom had passed away. Her mom passed away. My uncle passed away. And all three, like, obviously I'm an only child. So I dealt with my mom's death, because that was, as children, that's what we get to do. We get to deal with our parents when they die. It's awful, but it's what has to happen. And then my grandma passed away, and she named me the head person on her estate. My uncle did the same thing. So I was essentially dealing with 3 people's deaths and all the fun things that go along with that. We moved, and then I was trying to get acclimated into the music industry, which is an industry that happens normally between the hours of 7 and midnight. And my husband has like a normal day job, because he's a normal human. And, he's working from like 9 to 5. And then I'm trying to do music from 7 to midnight. So we experienced in our first year here quite a bit of disconnect. Our schedules were not lining up, and it got really, really hard. And we had to have like some serious come to Jesus moments to like figure that all out. But now I will say, a year and a half into it, everything is better than I could have ever hoped. My marriage is amazing. My music career is happening. I'm releasing an album. Like, sometimes, as mad as I get that, maybe this isn't happening as fast as I want it to, like, I just have to pump the damn brakes and be like, listen, kid, you've been here for a year and a half. You're still getting your legs under you. Like, just chill out. Like, I get to do what I've always dreamed of doing. I get to play my original music in Nashville. Like, I seriously have to give myself some wake up calls sometimes, because it all comes down to gratitude and appreciation, honestly.
Yeah, I love that story. I mean, it's like you said, it's very vulnerable, but I think it's important for some people to hear,
Yeah.
and realize that you do go through these hard times and these struggles, but there's a reason for it, and it can be just the amazing thing you're looking for if you just hold on, just hold it out a bit. So
Yeah.
that's amazing. So when you got to Nashville, when did you start recording? Like, how'd that go? Do you have to find someone to record with? Did you record yourself? How'd you get into that?
Well, I think a lot of people start like recording themselves and then they move on. I did it backwards. Like, I record myself now, but I didn't do that in the beginning.
Oh, wow.
Just because I think that I had like this thing in my head, like, oh, I'm in Nashville. I can't do anything. I'm like the DIY queen of the world. I take my guitars apart, for crying out loud. Like, if there was a way for me to figure out how to do something, I will freaking do it.
Yeah.
However, I didn't think that that was pertinent for me to do in the music capital of the country. I felt like I should maybe just take my amateur hat and like pull it on really tight and just learn. So when I first got here, I was kind of working with a manager here and there. I'm not working with them anymore. I'm just doing it all by myself. But I was working with a manager and I was getting hooked up with some people and some co-writes and that kind of thing. So that was amazing. I wrote some really cool stuff. The songs that I first brought to Nashville, I thought they were so awesome in Michigan. They sucked. They were horrible. They were about nothing. I don't even play them anymore. I don't even remember them. They were horrible.
Yeah.
So I started writing actual songs. And I was like, oh shit, like, this is what it feels like to write a real song. And I happened to write a song that was my first single, called Before You. And I wrote it with a group called Golden West, who is in Nashville now, but they're originally from LA. Great duo, amazing humans, love them to death. And we wrote Before You, and I was like, shit, I think I really want to cut this. Like, I hijacked the writing situation and put my own personal story into the song, kind of by accident, but kind of not. And so I cut the song through one of their good friends. So that was a great connection, amazing connection. And that's how I was able to release my first song. Since then, through a writer's round that I participate in semi-regularly, called Just the Song. It's run by one of my good buddies, Pime Hernandez. I met my current producer through that songwriter's round. And his name is Ben Miller. And right away, he and I and my husband all got along. He's Christian, but he's a badass musician. He's a touring guitarist with some really amazing people. And he's just like this guy that just has this presence. And then when I heard that he was doing production, I was like, shit, this is the sign that I needed. Like, if you're doing production, like, will you make an album with me? And he was like, okay, let's do it. So I will say that if there's anyone that's listening to this that has that same question, like, wasn't it intimidating? Wasn't it hard? Blah, blah, blah. I will say that some of the most beautiful things that have happened to me in this year and a half have happened on accident. Like, I didn't mean to meet Ben Miller when I met him. I didn't mean to have him make this creation with me, this full-length album that I'm releasing in June. Like, I didn't mean for that to happen. It just happened. And I think the more that I can get out of my own damn way and just let the universe take care of those details, the better. Because I'm not a very good miracle worker, so to speak, but like, the universe is. So I just show up and I do what I'm supposed to do. I write songs. I'm a good human, I think. I don't treat people like shit. And then, like, just freaking magic happens before I even know it. So that's, I mean, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah,
kind of a tangent,
absolutely. It's a good point to make, though, is that, stuff kind of happened by accident. I think one big plus to moving to a place like, Nashville or LA or Austin is there's a lot more accidents that can happen. I mean, when you're around people who are musicians who have connections, you never know what you're going to find. And I guess it just lets the universe have the ability to give you a bit more foothold in where you're at. So that's really cool.
It's so true. And like, I mean, sure, happy accidents could happen freaking anywhere you are, but I really think that you up your chances when you are in places where people are doing those things all the time. And like, I don't show up with like empty hands asking for things. Like, I've honestly don't really think I've ever asked anyone for anything. my heart is more to like serve and show up and like be who I am and like supply my whatever I offer to this world. And I think that when we do that, when we live like from that space, I think that we get rewarded for it because, you know, we're showing that we're being responsible with what we already have and the gifts that we bring to the world. And then the universe is like, what if I threw a Ben Miller in your path? What would you do with that? And I'm like, we would make something so epic. Let's
Yeah,
go.
that's awesome. So yeah, you met Ben Miller and you started work on the album. Tell me about the process of making the album, what it's been like, writing the songs, and kind of what the album means to you.
Yeah, the album's called Lessons from the Archives, and it's so much backstory. It's the majority of it is self-written. I wrote from the thing that we were talking about earlier when like everything was kind of a shitstorm. I took myself on, I booked myself an Airbnb in the middle of the woods somewhere. Like I didn't even know where I was going. I just knew that I needed like some alone time to like figure my shit out. You know, I needed to get my mind right. So I took my dog and we went on a trip and I laid in the middle of the floor and I wrote Honest. And that's going to be the first single that I released from the album. And that'll release on April 16th. But I was just in such a space where I was in throw your hands up and just like totally like cliche Jesus take the wheel kind of thing. And it was, I just had to really come clean with myself that like, yes, everything was a mess, but it wasn't unfixable. Like when you can come clean with everything and just start living like from your most honest space, that's where those miracles can happen again, you know? But I was like closing myself off to any miracles because I was just living in this land of like, no, everything's fine. Everything's not falling apart when really it was. Like it was totally, everything was bailing. I was like, shit, you know? So like that was probably the first like real depths of my soul song that I wrote. And I was like, I don't know what this is going to be used for, but I know it's going to be used for something. And there's 3 songs on there that I wrote with other people. I wrote one with Tony Luca called Already. I wrote another one called Rock Bottom with my friend Bailey Engel. And then of course I wrote Before You with Golden West, which I actually have already released, but we're doing a re-release of it, which I'm so excited for. Because I've just, in my year and a half, I've really kind of gained more understanding on my sound and who I am as an artist. So that's the reason for kind of doing a rebrand on the song. And this whole album has been a great exploration of who is Sarah Faith? You know, what do I want to sound like? How do I take all the 90s alternative and the 70s and 80s rock that I've listened to my whole life and roll that into something that's my own? And I think that's been like maybe one of the most amazing parts of the journey, as well as, you know, writing all these songs during quarantine and all this stuff of just like focusing on not what I can't do. I can't play live. I can't do this. I'll get sick. I'll die, whatever. So I'm sitting in this studio a lot with my guitar in my hand a lot. And I'm like, well, let's do it. You know, let's just write them. Let's just write the life story. Let's just write the backstory. So yeah, it's a very, very raw look into, you know, where I've been and where I'm going.
That's awesome. What are your hopes for the album? What do you hope it accomplishes?
Well, I don't know if you know a girl by the name of Katie Pruitt, but if you do,
Yeah,
do
actually,
you know Katie Pruitt?
I love Katie Pruitt.
Dude,
Yeah.
Katie, she doesn't know it yet, but we're good friends.
Yeah.
I say the same thing about Lindsay L. I say the same thing about Ashley McBride. There's quite a few people that I know that they don't know it yet, but we're like BFFs. Not in like a creepy fan way, but in just like I know that we have a lot of things in common, and I know that like that conversation would be so badass. So Katie released her debut album Expectations, and she got notoriety from like Rolling Stone and like all this shit. So like when I'm in my like dreamy dreams, I'm like, dude, what if I release this album and it's so badass that like people catch on and like they fucking love it and it gets like recognition by Rolling Stone. Like, dude, it could happen.
Yeah.
It could happen. So that's like kind of like up here. Like, what if Rolling Stone saw my debut album that I accidentally created in quarantine with Ben, and we were just like, boom, okay, sweet, that's amazing. But also what I really hope is, you know, the 13-year-old me that was alone in my room, contemplating life or death. If there's anybody, whether they're 13, 15, 25, 35, 45, I don't care where you are in your life. If you hear this music, just know that like I've been there too. You know, I've been to the depths where you are contemplating whether it's worth it to go on. And, you know, life dealt me the hand that it dealt me for a number of reasons that I have no control over. But what's beautiful about it is, you know, the shitstorm has led me to make this creation that I hope people can latch onto and relate to. Now, everybody's shitstorm doesn't result in a music career, an album, or anything close to that. But I do think that there are little gems in anybody's path or journey that maybe you're not listening to. Like maybe when you get really quiet and you sit by yourself for 5 minutes, there's a small voice in your head that says, do a podcast, start a women's group, you know, be a mentor to a kid who might be going through some shit that you went through that you could help. Like, I think that it's our job to help each other navigate through this messy life. And this is my outlet and how I'm choosing to do that.
That's amazing. I love that.
Thank you
So
much.
how would you compare the Nashville scene to the Michigan scene for the music?
Warmer. Warmer. You know, I think that, you know, if I could just be honest for a second, I think that I have felt, I felt a lot of things while I've been in Nashville now that I really stopped to think about it. But I will say that if you show that you actually give a damn and you aren't just like a flash in the pan that's going to be like, oh shit, my things got hard in my life, I'm going to go back home now. Like, people don't want to necessarily make friends with the people that are fair weather. But if you're here and you're locked in and you mean it, like you really mean it, like people are going to help you out. So like in Michigan, there were people that were like, well, you know, you're going to be a small fish in a big pond and you're going to have to navigate it all by yourself. It's going to be scary. It's going to be terrifying and blah, blah. Okay. Maybe that's true. However, if you can get past that, if you can get past being intimidated, blah, blah, because Michigan has the advantage of being Detroit and being Rock City and having like a really deep like rock background. So it's not like Michigan is naive to music. They're not. It's Motown. It's all of that. But as far as like music careers, Nashville is definitely a better place for it, I think. I mean, you can make a music career from wherever you are in the world. You can make it from your damn basement, you know, the way technology is today. You can do whatever you want. But if you can get over the intimidation factor, I think that's where you find the real helpful, juicy stuff that will help you take those next steps that maybe you wouldn't necessarily get the opportunity to do in Michigan because maybe the people's minds don't really work in that way. You know, it's not like a make or break kind of thing. There's 6,000 ways to make your living as a musician and 6,000 ways to do it in Nashville. I mean, you can be a session musician, you can be a background vocalist, you can get involved with whatever you want to get involved in. It's just a matter of, you know, getting over the like googly eyes, like, holy shit, what do I do? And like just taking a step in the right direction and having a conversation.
Yeah, I love that. That's perfect. So for people who just moved to Nashville and who are still in that googly eyed phase where they don't know what to do, what would you say the first step should be?
DM me. Reach out to me and ask me how I did it because I do not care. I will share it with anybody. And I'm not a master. I'm not, you know, I've only been doing it for 1.5 years. So I can't act like I'm some kind of magician. I would say like go to a couple places and feel out their vibes. You know, I think for me, when I first got here, I thought that I needed to be trying to play anywhere I could. I thought that I needed to be involved in this writer's round or do this or do that or like meet these people or whatever. And I felt like a lot of pressure to make it happen and make it happen fast. But what I've learned is, first of all, I heard this great line from Jamie Johnson, who was a guest on one of my friends' podcasts. And he said, the last one to quit wins. So I think the faster we can stop focusing on being an overnight success, because that's not really the case, that doesn't exist, the better off you'll be. Just get that out of our mind as fast as you can. Like, it's not about trying to make it happen as fast as possible, because the faster you make it happen, the shakier your foundation is. You've got to make sure you're laying that foundation so that when you build on it, it's sturdy and it lasts. Like, I don't know anybody that wants to be a musician, but only for like 1 year, you know? Yeah. We're not like coming down here like, oh, I think I'll just try this for 6 months and then I'll just go wait tables. Like, nobody wants to do that. So I think like when you get down here, like try it out. Like try a bunch of different stuff out. Like don't feel pressure to like, oh, I have to do this and I have to play here. And I heard a lot of great things about this, so I've got to weasel my way in. Like, don't be shisty about it, you know, don't be a dick. Like, I think it's really important to like, you know, I went down Music Row and I felt out those places and met those people and like, are they my vibe? Are they not my vibe? You know, I have tried out different stuff in where I live, out away from Nashville. Is it my vibe? Is it not my vibe? You know, and you meet your people and then it starts kind of like taking shape from there. But I think it all starts with community, not with like forceful action of trying any which way to like get heard everywhere. Because I mean, yes, maybe there is a producer in the audience, but also maybe there's not, in my opinion. You know,
Yeah.
I think the community is definitely where it's at.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I love these answers you're giving. I mean, they're super helpful. They're super personal. I think the people listening will appreciate that, especially the ones who, you know, are the ones seeking to go to Nashville and do these things that you've done. Because I feel like so many people have these questions and I think it's important that they have a place they can connect and find these answers. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So what are you excited for that's coming up?
Oh God, so many things. I'm excited and nervous because like I say, I'm a team of one. So like I use my photo and video background. Like I just ride it like a rented mule. I'm just like, okay, I need pictures. Okay, time to get the camera out, get the remotes. I take them myself. Like it's a labor of love for sure. So I have a lot of things that I need to create here in the next few months, but there's a single coming on April 16th. It's the first single off the album. I'm so excited for it. There's another single coming after that, and then another one after that, and then the whole album will drop on June 11th, which I'm so excited for. I've recently come into contact with a guitar player who's going to jump on and start this band with me, which is like so exciting. We've got shows on the docket for this summer, like full band, live, actual real shows. I'm going to play the album top to bottom. It all just kind of went boosh, you know, you show up, you do the things, and then it's like boosh, like falls down on you. Now, how long it'll last, we'll just pray. But yeah, it's great.
That's amazing. Well, I've appreciated talking to you. It's been a great conversation. I've had a great time hearing your story and hearing about your experiences, and I think other people will too. So I
Thanks
appreciate
so
your time.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a joy. I'm so excited to, you know, interact with your audience, and I'm just, you know, very grateful for you offering this up to me. Thank you so much.